We at one point tried to get those atomic clocks. They don't work so hot through all of our walls. Let's go.
All right, it's time.
Good morning. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning. Welcome to the July 26, 2021 meeting for the Shawnee County Board of County Commissioners. My name is Kevin Cook. I serve as the chair, also representing District 2. Joining me today is Commissioner Bill Rippon, representing District 1. Good morning.
Good morning.
And Commissioner Aaron Mays, representing District 3. Good morning.
Morning.
Madam Clerk, our first item.
First item is item 1 under proclamations presentations. Item A, presentation on the 2020 financial audit by Kristen Hughes, RSM US LLP.
Good morning.
Good morning.
This morning, consistent with what we've gone through in prior years, I believe you already have copies of the deliverables, what we call them at the conclusion of the audit. So I'm going to go through these at a pretty high-level summary of the content included in each one, and then I'm happy to go through any questions you have. So first item, I'll go through the small kind of bound document labeled as the compliance report. So as a reminder, excuse me, this includes, as part of our financial statement audit, we also take a look at the federal grant expenditures that the county has incurred. Obviously, there was a large increase this year due to the COVID CARES funds that the county received and expended during 2020. So you'll see that federal expenditures this year were over $40 million, again, most of which was the CARES funds. So this year, as part of our testing, we tested that grant as what we call our major program. So that was the grant we looked at. As a reminder, consistent with a financial statement audit, we take a look at the expenditures on a sample basis. So certainly not auditing 100% of those transactions, but in the sample we performed, no instances of unallowable costs came up. So you'll see that summarized in this report. As a reminder, under auditing standards, if we become aware of any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in our audit, both as it relates to the financial statement audit as well as that compliance audit, we're required to communicate that to you in writing. There were none identified during our procedures performed, so you'll see that summarized in this report as well. The other document, the stapled letter. So as a reminder, at the conclusion of every audit, there are certain required communications that we go through with those charged with governance. So on the first page, you'll just see a reminder of the responsibilities we follow as we perform our audit. So we certainly have auditing standards that we're required to follow when we're performing our procedures. It also just makes note of management's responsibility as well as we perform our work, both in the accuracy of the financial statements they're preparing as well as the information we're given as we're performing our testing. Another item to note, while your financials aren't comparative, we usually like to highlight if there was anything new or different in this year's report. Usually that's going to be the result of new accounting standards. So the county did adopt a newest standard this year. It was GASB 84, which is fiduciary activities. So what that means for you all, primarily, the biggest category here is going to be property taxes and other taxes you collect on behalf of others. So that's a fiduciary responsibility the county has. You've always reported that information in your financials. The content just changed a little. So really what it means is you're adding an income statement. So you show the amount collected in of property taxes and then how much you distribute to others. So you'll just see a slight change for that in what was called the custodial funds added to this year's report. Another change you'll see, really again relating to that CARES funding, is you will see a new specific major fund, again, that shows the receipts and expenditures of the CARES grant funding that was received and expended this year. Other than that, really no significant changes in the content of the financial statements. You'll see in the stapled packet as well, we just provide a summary if there was any audit adjustments or uncorrected misstatements. All that simply means is during the course of our testing, and if any adjustments came up, audit adjustments means those were reflected in the final audited financials. Uncorrected misstatements are those that are determined to be immaterial by management and us. So instead, you'll just see them summarized here. You'll see in this packet there was just a handful of entries, which, you know, when you think of a county this size, that's a really positive. The auditor's office does a really nice job of preparing a trial balance that's very consistent with the final audit product. Very few entries are identified biased during the course of our testing. As I noted, there was no significant deficiencies or material weaknesses. There was only one control deficiency. So again, there are 3 tiers of deficiencies. Control deficiency is going to be the lowest level one. The only item that we noted here in writing in the packet is the notification of the 2019 financials on what's called the EMA website, or the continuing disclosure requirements for bondholders. That filing was just a few days late. We've already gone through that, and I know they're already working on making sure the 2020 financials are filed timely. So again, the information was put out there, just not by the specific deadline date noted in the terms of the bond agreement. Lastly, the audit opinion. In the financial statements, you will see what the AICPA refers to as an unmodified opinion, also referred to as a clean audit opinion, meaning the financials are presented in accordance with GAAP with no material misstatements. Any questions? I know that was quick, but it's a lot of content to go through, and the audit process is a really lengthy process. We do start our interim testing usually in the December-January timeframe. It certainly takes a while for all the departments to have a chance to close the books, and then we're usually out here for about 4 weeks doing our testing, and then a few other weeks to get through all the deliverables that we have. But I'm happy to go through any questions you have on the financials, the audit itself.
I just want to make sure I hit the highlights. It was a clean audit.
Yes.
Everything came through okay. There was no issues with the audit. Identified the one control deficiency, which already been addressed. No notes, no red flags, no corrective actions for the county. And so having a clean audit is always a really highlight for the Audit Finance Department.
Agreed. Yes. No, that's consistent with what you'll see in these items here.
Okay. Any questions?
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very
and
much.
Thank you to the Audit Finance, and thank you for everything that they do. So, Madam Clerk, our next item.
Item 3, consent agenda.
There are 2 items on the consent agenda. Are there any questions, or is there a motion?
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Mays, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Reflect that it passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item A, number 4, new business A, County Clerk number 1, consider all voucher payments.
Commissioners, this morning we have vouchers totaling $3,633,649.38. One item of note under that is under infrastructure to Bettis Asphalt and Construction. That's for $565,715.94. It's for the mill and overlay of South Topeka Boulevard between 93rd and Airport Drive. I don't have any questions about this.
Motion made by Commissioner Mays,
Second.
second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Reflect that it passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item A2, consider correction orders.
I'll move for approval.
Second.
Motion for approval by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Reflect that it passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item B, Public Works number 1, consider approval of request to solicit bids for the replacement of a road-mounted air conditioner at the Sherwood wastewater treatment plant at an estimated cost of $30,000, 100% user fee funded.
Good morning, Commissioners. Kurt Neos, Director of Public Works. The 2011 roof-mounted air conditioner at the Sherwood treatment plant is in need of replacement. 10 years doesn't sound very long, but in the environment that the treatment plant operates, I guess that's about standard. For the replacement, we want to utilize some new technologies that should improve the life or extend the life of the replacement air conditioner. This air conditioner isn't just something that cools office space. It's a unit, a special unit that cools the control center, the control room for the treatment plant. And it's important that this room be kept at a specific temperature range, a very narrow range. So that's why the unit is so expensive. We expect a no greater than $30,000 expenditure. And with that, I take your questions.
Questions for Kurt?
None.
Is there a motion?
I'll move for approval.
Second.
Motion for approval by Commissioner Rippon, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Reflected it passes 3-0.
Thank you.
Our next item.
Item C, Facilities Management number 1, consider authorization and execution of contract C263-2021 with Carita to provide water treatment supplies and services to the courthouse and Manor Conference Center HVAC equipment for a monthly fee of $471.74, utilizing the departmental budget.
Good morning, Commissioners. Alda Henning, Director of Facilities Management. This item is a continuation of a contract, but please note that there is an increase monthly on the cost of the chemicals. I'll answer any questions.
Questions? Seeing none, I'll move for approval.
Second.
Motion for approval by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Reflected, it passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item D, Planning Department. Number 1, consider approval of a preliminary final replat to create a 15.96 acre lot on Northwest Landon Road, zoned rural agricultural district located in Minokan Township.
Good morning, Commissioners. Randy Anderson, Planning Department. This is a very simple preliminary and final replat, to modify the plat you approved back in April and recorded in May. They simply need to add 4.5 acres to the property that was originally platted in order to fit their septic system on the same lot as the house in the preferred location where the house wants to be located. Other than that, the plat complies with all requirements of the subdivision regulations. The Planning Commission did recommend approval unanimously, and the staff is supporting the request as well. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Randy, so this is just about making sure the septic system is where the house is going to be?
Correct.
Okay. And there's no environmental issues with it?
No, sir.
Okay. Any other questions?
I'll move for approval.
Second.
Motion for approval by Commissioner Rippon, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Reflected, it passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item E, Department of Corrections. Number 1, consider authorization and execution of contract C-264-2021 with Thompson Reuters Westlaw for provisions of legal research access to inmates for 36 months, starting at $1,513 a month, with annual increases of 5%, with funding from the Inmate Benefit Fund.
Good morning, Commissioners. Tim Phelps, Department of Corrections. The current agreement with Westlaw Inmate Law Library Services is going to end at the end of this month. So this is a renewal, and so we took the opportunity to make this more available and more flexible so that it'll be on both the tablets that the inmates have, and it'll be on some workstations if we have any inmates that need more intensive activity, research, and other stuff. So that's what the purpose of this agreement is, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Tim?
And just to reiterate, though, this is not paid for with tax dollars, right?
No, sir, this is paid for out of the Inmate Benefit Fund, which is funds that accumulate from them purchasing various things in commissary.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions? I'll move for approval.
Second.
Motion for approval by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Reflected, it passes 3-0. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Our next item.
Item F, Parks and Recreation. Number 1, consider authorization and execution of contract C-265-2021 with Road Rash Mobile Skate Shop to provide mobile food vending throughout the parklands with independent contractor to pay a $250 annual permit fee.
Good morning, Commissioners. Randy Luby, Shawnee County Parks and Recreation. This is our typical mobile vendor permit. When a vendor would like to sell food products in our parks, we have them go through this process. They are KDHE licensed, and once they fill out the permit, it goes to the legal office for their approval. And I believe this one is going to be setting up mainly at Shunga Glen and Chesney Park, where our skate parks are. Be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Randy, are they selling anything more than food and beverages? Or
I believe it's just food.
okay, just food. No beverages then?
Yeah, there's beverages with that.
Does that interfere with the contracts we have with Pepsi, Coke?
Actually, they're supposed to sell Coke
I
products.
see.
So.
Okay. All right.
Any other questions? Is there a motion?
Go ahead.
I'll move for approval.
Second.
Motion for approval by Commissioner Rippon, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Reflected, it passes 3-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next item.
Item G, Commission number 1, discussion of proposed 2022 budget.
Good morning, Commissioners. Betty Griner, Director of Administrative Services, and it's budget time again.
Betty, before we get too far, can we kind of go over an outline of our calendar and just kind of the expectations of where timeline?
Yes. Over the next 2 weeks of commission meetings, we will have the opportunity to, for the commission to have discussion, make decisions, preliminary decisions on various departments. Then we will take a break until August 23rd. August 23rd, we will have the public hearing at 5:30 that evening. Then after the public hearing, then you will come back to discussion at the regular scheduled meeting, and at that point in time, then you'll have discussions and finalize and adopt the final budget. The reason the timing is so different this year, Senate Bill 13 was passed by the legislature, which requires the public hearing to be from August 20th through September 20th.
Betty, our next four meetings, if the commission works through a budget today and they have a preliminary outline, we could skip a meeting and let it sit for come back a week and see if we want to make any adjustments, or we could just say this is our proposal and be done. Or we could take all 4 weeks, or all
That's right.
4 meetings.
We've set aside 4 meetings for these discussions if needed. If you're satisfied before that, then we will just stop there and then wait till the public hearing on August 23rd so that the public has an opportunity to make their comments known.
Okay. And then on August the 26th, after the public hearing, when the county would consider its final budget, are we required to pass the budget on the 26th, or?
This year, you're not required. It can go later than that into September. So there again, it will just be whenever you're ready to make that final decision.
Okay. All right. Well, any other questions before we get started? Okay.
Okay, well, I have a worksheet here for you to use, and let me explain this a little bit. The first column there is the category or the department. That lists the categories like law enforcement or recreation, that kind of category, and totals those. But then under that category heading is each of the departments that falls within that category. Or in the case of public health, many times it's an organization rather than a department. The next column is the 2021 final budget column that shows the total amount that was budgeted for that department or organization in 2021 or for 2021. The next column are the 2022 budget requests. That is just a compilation of all of the requests that was received from the different departments and organizations. The next column is the flat budget. This is a flat amount that I have calculated that incorporates, it takes the 2022 wage expenses, and that includes any wage increases that have been agreed upon, and then it also includes any benefit increases we've had over the year. It also includes the additional CAPERS increases that we talked about for the intermittent part-time employees that will be required. Then that's the 22 amount, but then I take the 21 amount that was budgeted for goods and services for that department. It does not include, this flat budget does not include transfers to the retirement fund that departments may have requested. That retirement fund is kind of like a savings account that we set up so that as they can, departments can put money into that for specific employees that, you know, as they become eligible for retirement, so that it's there when it's needed. So that column is the flat budget. The next column is a column that says VCC Adjustments. That is a column where you can make any adjustment that you choose to make to the flat budget for a specific department, and then those two columns are added together for the 2022 proposed budget column. If you go down to the bottom here, we have the actual total budget here. These will scroll down as we look at the different departments and organizations. But this column, this line here is the actual total budget column. You can see that the total requests are $124 million. The flat budget is $116 million. Then down here, get this a little bit so I can move it here. This calculates the estimated mill levy. We've talked before that the county clerk will actually establish the mill levy later after she has the final levy amount and the final valuation amount. But this is an estimated mill levy, and then I'm also showing the estimated increase in the mill levy from the prior year. I've also added a line here that says remaining for estimated mill increase. Right now I have this at 0, this 0 right here. That amount can be changed if you decide you do not want a mill levy increase. This shows us right here that to remain the same at the same mill levy, you would have to cut expenses by $3,133,901 from the flat budget to remain at the same mill levy. If you decide you want this to be 5 or 6 mills, that you want to increase it, then that will adjust it and tell you how much money you have to do that. So that's just a tool I put in here I thought might be helpful for you as you go through this process.
Betty, can we go down to the bottom? And if every department received their allocation and we set aside $4 million for the implementation of the comp study for wage increases over 2022, we would be looking at a mill increase of 6.241.
That's correct.
Okay. And then the last time there was an increase in the mill levy was in
14.
Yes, budget hearing of 2013 for
Yes.
implementation in 2014.
Yes, that's correct.
So we have gone since 2014 without any mill levy increase.
Yes, yeah, it was of course, the budget was established in 2013, but it was for the year of 2014.
Okay.
So 8 years.
Okay. Which is a long time in government without any adjustments to those. So, Betty, can we start with administrative services and kind of go through some of the ones that we are locked into? Starting with general expenses.
Yes. General expenses, as I look at the expenses for the county and what has been required for us to have, and the flat budget that I've come up with for that is $2,058,400.
I'd move for approval of that amount. Is there a second? General expense under administrative services.
Just as,
This would just remain
Yeah.
at the flat budget and what I'm recommending.
I would second that.
Okay. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Reflect that it passes 3-0. And again, I'm going to remind.
Oh, wait a minute, I'm sorry, I said that incorrectly. I am requesting
A decrease.
$2,176,500 because we are adding the new building at 707 Quincy. So I have added $120,000 for that. So I
Then
am asking for additional.
Then let me go back and re-amend my
I'm
motion.
sorry,
Motion
yes,
to
yes.
$2,176,500.
Where is that amount reflected in this sheet? I'm not seeing it.
Administrative services,
It's
general
under the
expenses,
budget request
I'm looking at
column,
that.
which is the white-
2022, it's the white column.
The white column.
Oh, I see it now.
Mhm.
Okay.
So that would be adding $118,100 to the flat budget, because the flat would be the same as last year. But that amount is for additional operating costs for the new building.
Commissioner, do you still a second?
Yes.
Okay. And then, all in favor, say aye. All opposed? And again, these are just preliminary. These can be adjusted multiple times, so. All right. Contingents.
The next item is contingency.
I need a motion.
Motion made by
I
Commissioner
didn't
Cook,
vote.
second by
Oh.
Commissioner Rippon. All in favor said aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. Cindy, keep us on track. Okay, the next one is contingency. For quite some time, we have normally budgeted $1 million in contingency. For 2021, we cut that down to $500,000. I am requesting that we boost that back up to $1 million. We had increased last year, for the 2021 budget, we had increased the capital outlay to $2.5 million and decreased the contingency. We are half of the way through this year, and we have virtually spent all of the contingency money. So I am suggesting that we increase that back up to $1 million, where it has historically been.
Questions?
I don't disagree that we need to have $1 million, but I think we're gonna find some place to cut money, and I would move it, maybe we cut that down to like 800,000.
Did you say to
Eight-
800?
800.
And again, this would be preliminary.
Mhm.
Is that a motion?
Yeah, that's a motion.
Is there a second for that to be 800,000?
I'll second that. That's 800.
Motion made by Commissioner Mays for 800,000, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Reflect that it passes 3-0.
The next is capital outlay. That is something that was historically at $2 million over the last few years. Last year, you increased it to $2.5 million. When we had our discussion, our CIP discussion, at that point in time, you had said that you were going to set that budget at $2 million.
I would make a motion to have that at $2 million.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Reflect that it passes 3-0. Our next.
Would you like to continue in administrative services, or would you?
No, can we go down to bond debt service?
Okay, the first category for the bond debt service, that is for the GO bonds. That is, I am just requesting the amount that would be required for the debt service. So, for this year, so that would be an increase of $9,790 for that bond debt service line. That is something that is pretty much an obligation of the county.
Any questions?
I would move that we approve that.
I would second.
Motion made by Commissioner Mays, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Reflect that it passes 3-0.
Now, on the COP debt, that, I have taken the request, or the set amount that we will need for our bond debt service this year, and I have added $850,000. That would be debt service on $10 million, and the reason I put that in there is because that is $10 million that has been approved to be issued. It has not been issued. We have not taken any steps to issue it, but because it has already been approved as the intent to issue at some point in time, I have added that is principal and interest for 1 year. This is something that can be changed. It can be a portion of that. It can also be interest only for 1 year. You can only, we would only want to do interest only for 1 year, but that is also an option that could be done. So that is something that the column that shows the budget request of $4,107,000 includes the $850,000.
Given that we had an intent to bond that amount,
Yes.
we should budget for principal and interest. I think that's,
Do we have some obligation on that Deer Creek Trail that,
that has been.
That has
would be
been
in-
paid out of the Parks and Rec fund until such time as we do issue debt.
And then it would be reimbursed back.
Yes.
okay.
But I would move that we approve, again, this preliminary, the request of $4,107,744.
Can we talk about this just a little bit more?
Sure.
I think maybe we ought to put this one off. We're looking at, we've got a lot of requests, and I think this is an easy place to cut if we need to. Issuing debt right now, I don't know. It makes sense if we're in a good financial situation, but if we're not, at the end of the day today, or 2 weeks from now, that's something that we probably need to consider.
Or a month.
Or a month, whenever.
Okay.
So then, that motion dies for a lack of a second.
I would also just make comment on the special liability fund. That is a separate fund that we do levy taxes for, and that is for any legal claims or that type of thing we would need money for. What we normally do is we levy a small amount for that fund to build those funds up for any such time that we would need them. So that's why I've kept that at 100,000.
Would move for approval of the 100,000.
Have we historically used that fund every year, or?
We don't use it every year. What it generally, will build up, and then there may be a large settlement that we have to have, that we use that for. We have, in the past, have had to use it down to just about zero, and then we start building it up again.
And what was it at now?
I'm sorry?
And what's it at now?
I'm sorry, I don't know.
You don't- okay.
I can get that information for you and bring it back to you.
That would be good to know.
Is there a motion to, can we approve the 100,000 for right now as we have historically done? And then we can come back to it?
We can do that. I'll make that motion.
Okay. Motion made by Commissioner Rippon, all second. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Reflect that it passes 3-0. Betty, can we go to?
If I can just make one comment first. The last column, the last line there is implementation of comp study. I've put $4 million in there. Our preliminary numbers now are coming back that that's probably high, so I would say let's hold off for that one until we get some better numbers on that. We're to have another meeting this week with them. So I would say that one would be one that would be best to hold off for now.
Okay. Under public health, the ambulance, this is contractual services.
Yes, that is by contract.
So as it is a contract and it's at $350,000, I would move for approval of the $350,000. Is there a second?
Under the ambulance?
Ambulance.
Yeah, that's second.
Motion made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Reflected it passes 3-0. Under the corner again is contractual services. Move approval of the $596,545.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Reflected it passes 3-0. Under the health clinic, Grace Med, there's 0. That's by our contract, and we are now out of the financing of healthcare.
That's right, yes. 2021 was the end of that contract.
And I don't know that we need to budget zero, but just noting it.
No, but I wanted to leave it on here because because we did have an amount in 2021.
Okay. Outside of the possibility of the shelter for the animal shelter, I think that would be the end of our contractual. Is that correct? Okay.
And the animal shelter is a contract, but we set the amount of that each year. So that is not a continuing contract. That contract comes up for renewal each year, and that amount is negotiable based on what you budget.
Commissioner Mays, is there an area that you would like to visit, or do you want to just start at the top?
Well, yeah, I think starting at the top is just fine.
Okay. I was trying to get through some of those ones that are fixed cost, and so we can get, all right, Betty, let's start at the beginning with law enforcement.
Okay. The first one is the counselor's office. They are asking for $113,000 over budget. 81,000 of that would be a transfer to their retirement fund, which I normally do not calculate, or which I do not calculate in the flat budget. Then they were also asking for 15,000 for the county code.
And Betty, when we talk about the retirement, just again for anybody watching, we do budget for retirements even though there may not be any retirements anticipated.
Yes, what we do is we look at those employees that are eligible, but what we also do many times with these departments is, I want them to know what employees are eligible and how much money that would amount to if they all retired. But also what we usually do in this is many times the department waits till the end of the year, and then if they have some excess money, then they use that to transfer into that, into the retirement fund.
Additionally, I believe there was a built-in for updating the county code, which has been an ongoing request of the counselor.
And that was about 15,000.
Okay.
So Betty, explain to me, as I look through these requests, the retirement fund requests are in almost every department, and they amount to quite a substantial amount of money. Walk me through what happens if somebody retires and there's not enough in that fund.
Well, first of all, the fund, within that fund, we keep track of how much money is in there per department. So, when they budget, they look at how much, if an employee is eligible for retirement and they were to retire right now, then that's how much it would cost them. If that money is in there for that department or that employee, then we transfer that money to the department so that their budget doesn't get hit with that extra cost, that additional cost. Generally, most all departments have some money set aside. I don't think we have any departments that do not have money set aside. Say we have 10,000 set aside for John Doe, but when he retires, it actually ends up to be 12,000. But if that department has 15,000 set aside, just not designated all to John Doe, then they still can use that 12,000 to go towards that. If somebody would retire and the retirement was actually 20,000 and they only had 15,000 in there, then the rest of it would hit their budget. There again, if that's something that was not a planned retirement or something like that, and it's an extremely unusual case, they could come to the commission for contingency money if they needed to, but generally there is always either there's room in their budget or there is there is extra funds for their department in the retirement fund.
So I don't expect you to have an answer for this today, but one thing I'd like to maybe see is how much in the past has been carried over into those accounts, at the end of the year. And just
I
to
think we
get a
have
sense
2
of,
million in that retirement fund.
not how much is in there necessarily, but how much is carried over each year from.
That's how much is carried over.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's because, our employees are eligible to retire after 20 years of service to the county. So, but many, someone could be, 40 years old and be eligible for retirement, and not planning to retire for quite some time. So there's generally sufficient funds in there to cover pretty much any department. There was a few departments that we really had to build up, and I believe we have. That I don't think there's any departments that would really be in, that I would be concerned about. I still think it's a good practice for us to look at that and to always be mindful of putting that money aside when we can, kind of like a savings account, so that that department's budget doesn't get hit by a big retirement that, that they really just couldn't afford.
Okay.
Do you want to go?
Sorry to hijack your budget. So, all right, well, let's.
Oh, there's 433,000 in the special liability fund. You had asked me earlier.
Okay.
This time I would make a motion to approve a budget request for the counselor. And again, this is a preliminary, as all these are, of $800,000.
800,000?
Yes. Is there a second?
So that would be
35.
cut of 35,258.
Correct.
I'd second that.
Motion made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, reflect that it passes 3-0. Community
Community corrections. The flat budget is just the amount that they had received, pretty much the amount for last year. They had asked for new employees and also supervisory increases.
I see Tim Phelps at the back, and where this is a increase of almost double of what their current, and I know that there was a request for those employees, Tim, if you want to come on up. And then also there was a request to make contributions to match. So, Tim, do you want to talk briefly about the community corrections?
Yes, Commissioner Tim Phelps, Department of Corrections. There's actually two issues here that I see. One is, of course, the statutory information that this year we have reached out to 2nd Judicial District, as I think you all know, and tried to do some negotiating with them to start participating in the community corrections program. And if they fail to do so, and then we decide as a county that we'll no longer contract with them to do that, the amount of money that would stop coming to us from state grants and go to them would be almost exactly the amount of money that I put in my proposed budget, because we basically absorb all those services back into 3rd Judicial District for about the exact same cost. But setting that issue aside, if that doesn't come to pass that way, we are seeking to continue to try to impact our caseloads and increase our programming for the community corrections services by adding 2 additional officers and 1 programs specialist, and then getting some additional space in our facility to conduct that programming at a more intensive rate. I'll be happy to answer any other questions that you have about that.
Questions for Tim? Tim, do you know when the 2nd Judicial District will know for sure whether they're in or out?
Well, I think that communication we got last Friday indicates to me that they don't intend to participate in assisting with funding. So as far as them being, I think they've made their decision. I think now it falls upon us to decide whether we're going to continue to do that supporting of their operation from our county funds and from state funds, or whether we're going to discontinue the contract. We would discontinue it effective July 1st of next year, because we're already in this fiscal year and have already received the funding.
So we wouldn't be able to pull out now?
Correct. We would pull out. We'd give them notice so that the state DOC could start coordinating with different people for those services.
Okay. And the amount that we had, if they were to not be a participant, the financial impact of that, you said?
Yeah, what we would have dropped from our, if we looked at the current year's grant, is $372,223 and some change. I had ironically had asked for $376,000, so it's about a $4,000 difference from what I asked for, in addition to what we're currently doing and what we would have to absorb if we cut away from Second Judicial District. Of course, the benefit is now all those services are being done in Third Judicial District, and we're not doing anything over there anymore.
Now, I know that the communication of last week was with one specific county, but the Second Judicial District is made up of 4 counties.
Yes, but the letter they sent us is actually signed by the county attorney for all 4 counties.
Okay.
So at least on the face of that document, it does include all 4 of them.
All right.
Sorry, I just have a question. So you would not provide them services either? You wouldn't receive the money, but you would not provide them services? So
Yes.
how much would it cut your costs?
Right, it would be just about a wash, because those funds would no longer come to us, it would go to them if we received the amount that we ironically asked for this year.
But instead of 300,000, you would still have half a year, so your
Correct.
impact would be 150,000.
Correct. In this specific year, it would be that impact.
Okay. Now, the state had indicated that they were still working with counties to build up their match, and so they're not expecting the counties to match dollar for dollar or percent as required automatically, correct?
That's the current setting, yes. Yes, they're trying really on multiple fronts to try to improve the situation for the various community corrections organizations across the state, and that's one of the approaches they're taking.
So we wouldn't necessarily have to be up to speed in this year. We could still be working towards that goal.
Yes, sir. My intent here, as I go each year, is incrementally get to the match level.
Okay.
Okay, let me step back. You said that if we would decide to do that we'd only have a half year, but as long as we are providing the services, we are also providing receiving the funds. So if it's a wash, it would be a wash regardless of when the service drops off.
They operate on July to July.
That's
We
right.
operate on a January to December.
That's right.
So we would be obligated from January 1 through July 1.
But we would receive the state funds from January 1 through July 1.
And then we would be required to pay back that half. So if we receive $300,000 from the state, we would have to pay back the $150,000 when our contract ends July 1.
Well, the way that would work is, if we just look at just the calendar, from January to June 3rd, January 1 to June 30, the state would pay those funds because we're already obligated, they're already obligated. Starting July 1st of next year, it would all be county funded, which means the calculation you did would be roughly half of what we lost by losing the state grant for next fiscal year. So you're right that it's roughly that figure for fiscal 22, county fiscal 22.
But you wouldn't have those additional services you had to provide for the last half of the year.
I would have the funding to keep paying for those services because it's county funding rather than state funding. And then we would have to revisit it for the full value the following fiscal year.
So instead of an increase of $300,000 for next year, you would be requesting looking at an increase of 150,000.
It's, well, it's a little more than that, but yeah,
Yes.
that's the calculation. It's basically halving cutting in half the request I made to cover us for all of fiscal '22.
Okay. Tim, might it be helpful if we hold your item until we know more certainly the status of the second judicial district and maybe have some communication with those entities, those 4 counties, before we make a final decision here?
I think that would be fine.
Okay.
So-
I don't feel any today rush, but yes.
All right.
I have a question. So, let's say we discontinue and the money starts going to the second district. Are they just gonna stand up a new program there, or?
Well, I think that what they're going to find out is that a lot of what we do is already built infrastructure that they're going to have to start from scratch with. And so it's going to actually be much more expensive than what they're going to get from the state. But yes, that's what they would have to do is first they have to apply for the money, and then they have to stand up an operation to use the money.
So with the decrease, let's just say hypothetically this happens, with the decrease in workload that we might have, are we still going to have a need for the new employees?
Well, kind of to step back to previous conversations, my goal here is to reduce the caseload so we're doing the job right. This would have the effect, at least for the next year, the same effect as if we kept second judicial district and Shawnee County gave me the funding I requested. It would reduce caseloads for the officers. So yes, we need them because I'm trying to fix what we're doing over there by having reasonably sized caseloads.
Okay.
I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, the second judicial district leaving would probably, again, there's an impact where we're having a corrections, or an officer drive all the way to Westmoreland. You've got approximately an hour drive out, meeting with 2 or 3 people that may or may not show up, and then driving an hour back to Shawnee County. And the cost of the gas and time, so.
Right, and Jackson County, Holton, and Jefferson County, and Wabunsee. Yes.
So, anyway, I think maybe if we can hold the community corrections until a little bit later, maybe even later this week or next week, until we know more about with the second judicial district, because that's going to have an impact.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. Department of Corrections, which is the largest item in the Shawnee County budget.
They are asking for $289,000 over the flat budget, and $200,000 of that would go to their retirement fund. They are one that I mentioned before was way behind in their retirement fund, and we were able to transfer a significant amount into that at the end of last year because of their costs being down. So the majority of their increase is being asked for that.
Questions?
So with I think what you described as a significant amount was transferred in, has it altered this in any way? I mean, were
I
they
believe
originally going to ask for 400,000 or?
No, I believe they would be, I believe they would be comfortable, their level of retirement fund is comfortable.
Okay.
So I don't believe it's a dire need.
So if we remove that 200,000, I mean, should we put something in there? Maybe 50? Just, I mean,
Something.
Trying to get my calculator.
Yeah, Jennifer will provide you with a list of the retirement balance we have for each of the departments. Get that for you.
If we were to cut that by 150,000, that takes you to 2,163,359.
I'm sorry.
If instead of contributing to 200,000 to the retirement, if you put 50,000 into the retirement, then we would be down to 28,163,359.
Okay. You said something about 2 million.
I'm sorry,
that's
28 million, sorry. Brain's
Okay.
trying to process.
That's all right.
28,163,359. Would that be then, would 50,000 instead of 30,000?
Yeah, I think I'd make that motion.
Okay.
And what was the motion?
Motion is for $28,163,359 for the Department of Corrections.
So an additional $139,051.
Yes. I'll second. Discussion? All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. District Attorney.
District Attorney, he was asking for 3 new employees that total about $175,000. He's asking for $198,939.
Commissioners, I guess where I'm looking at is, I don't doubt the need for those 3 additional employees, but we also are going to be undergoing quite a bit of renovations in 2021, 2022, as we exit this building, providing more space for the district attorney, and for him to get those new employees. Right now, the district attorney's office, as I understand, is pretty much elbow to elbow as it stands right now. Mr. Kage, do you? I know the space is a huge issue for your office right now.
You know, thank you, Commissioner Cook. It is a huge issue for us. It has been going on 4 years. We are elbow to elbow. It is my understanding, however, that due to the actions taken by this commission, a new building has been acquired, and I've heard some discussion about that. It's my belief that that additional space that we've been looking for several years is going to be available to us in calendar year 22. And this request contemplates that coming to fruition. So it is true, if I had the money today to hire these 3 new employees, I couldn't hire them because I'd have nowhere to put them. But assuming this all works the way that I've been assured it will, we will have the space, and we do need those positions.
Let me make one other comment. One of the provisions with the American Rescue Plan Act is for judicial to catch up with what happened during COVID. These positions would be eligible for American Rescue Plan funds if it was something that was granted. Now, it would only be for the, for the term of that act. But that is something that the committee could review.
That was actually going to be my next question. It really seems like these new positions are a direct result of the backlog created by COVID. And so, this, and then also the district court's request with the increases for the attorneys and judges. I mean, it seems like those would be both ARPA fund eligible. I mean, we've estimated, 2 years to get caught up probably. So, I mean, if we funded those for 2 years through ARPA, I mean, it seems like that'd be an easy thing to do and justified, in my opinion.
And I'll offer comments since the budget presentation that I gave you all earlier this month. And Betty had pointed out the possibility of those funds. I did some checking. It appears my colleague in Johnson County made a similar request for the same exact reasons. The COVID backlog is affecting all of us. His was for some attorneys and legal assistants, and his commission approved $1 million for him. And I just need these 3 positions to carry us through this backlog. The caseload right now is overwhelming, and as we discussed during the presentation, the most serious cases are the 55 pending homicide and nearly 60 pending sex offense, including child sex offense cases, all of which require an incredible amount of effort and man-hours in order to do correctly. My best estimate is 2 to 3 years, but I'm grateful for any support the commission is willing to give that request.
Betty, when we talk about the use of the ARPA, that's not something the commission necessarily directs the committee, but we have the final approval of.
Yes, the committee will make a recommendation to the commission. Then you will either accept their recommendation or make changes as you wish. As Jim pointed out before, the decision is ultimately yours.
I would say that even if the committee recommends or does not recommend those funds be spent for this, I think that's something that I would support making modifications for. So, tell the committee that we'd like to see that in there, and we'll take that out of the general fund, in my opinion. I think.
So given your comments, then would you move to have a flat budget for the district attorney, contemplating having the additional positions funded through ARPA?
Yes, that would be my motion.
I would second that.
Motion made for a flat budget for the district attorney. That would be $4,908,149. Motion made by Commissioner Mays, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Reflect that it passes 3-0.
Next, we have District Court. They are asking for an additional $256,000, and they were asking for $261,000 with contract increases for the attorneys and judges.
So going back to my comment from earlier, has Widow O'Brien weighed in on this as to whether or not this might be an eligible expense as well?
Well, we have talked briefly about the fact that there is specific money for the judicial area for catch-up. So I think it depends on if this money is being given to them just for pay increases, or if it's given to them for catching up the backlog. If it's given it to them for, catching up the backlog due to COVID, then I believe it would be eligible. That's something we'll definitely, can check into further. I would think my initial impression is that yes, it would be eligible.
Could we skip over this one and come back
Yep.
on a different day?
Yep.
When maybe we have a little more answers?
Yep. Yes. Now, I notice that we are just past the 10 o'clock hour, so according to our standing policy, we're going to stand for 5 minutes while we continue, but just to stretch, and so get your blood circulating to the rest of your feet and toes. Drug court.
Yeah, our next one is drug court. We have historically given them $15,000 in a flat amount. And
I would
that is
make
what
the-
they are requesting.
I would make a motion to approve the $15,000. That's a flat amount.
I'll second that.
Motion made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0.
Emergency management, their request is actually a little lower than the flat budget, by $9,900.
I move that we approve that.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Mays for the amount, the budget request, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0.
And Safe Streets is the next one. They have requested the same as last year at $15,000.
I would move to approve the request for Safe Streets.
Second.
Motion for approval by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Reflect that it passes 3-0.
Next is the Sheriff's Department. They have requested an increase of $794,000 over a flat budget. $100,000 of that is a retirement fund. $210,000 of that was additional money that they expect for gas. And then the other amount is just spread among other items.
The sheriff is the second highest allocated amount in the budget. So, discussion of the sheriff?
Can we skip over the sheriff and come back and just do some of the smaller ones first and kind of get those out of the way?
Okay.
And would you like to go on down to recreation, or would you like to skip to a different?
Let's keep going straight.
Okay. The next is the Stormont Event Center. They are asking for an additional $144,845. $100,000 of that is anticipated in the incentive fee and $44,000 in operational costs.
Could you remind us what that incentive fee?
The incentive fee is based on their revenue that they come in. It's meant as an incentive, so the more revenue they can bring in, the more we pay them. It's based on a percentage, and it's a progressive incentive. They get, higher percentage the more they bring in. That goes to their corporate office. It does not go to the operations of the event center. That goes to their corporate office.
So this is just an anticipation of success.
You got it. Request?
If you did, the incentive fee, let me say this, the incentive fee is part of the contract. So that will be calculated, and we will pay them whatever that calculation is. We work with them throughout the year in estimating that, and if that is more than we had estimated, then we actually decrease the amount that we pay them in their monthly operational allocation, so that, because I can't pay over the budgeted amount. Did I say that so that made sense?
I'm not sure.
Ish, yeah.
Okay. The incentive fee we budget what we think it will be based on their projections, but the calculation itself is part of the contract. So whatever that comes out to be, we will pay to their corporate office. If it's higher than we anticipate, then we decrease the portion that we pay for their operations, so that that line item does not go into a negative number.
So have we never included this in the budget?
It's always included, yes. It's
Okay.
always included. This year, they're just showing a $100,000 increase in the incentive.
And what is it typically? Or do we know what it was last year at least, Kellen, maybe?
So the incentive calculation for last year,
Well, I guess 2019 might be a better indicator than
Yeah.
last year. So.
the incentive calculation for 2019 was $205,000. The incentive calculation for 2020 was $325,000. The incentive calculation in the request for 2022 is $328,000. And that's based off of a revenue benchmark, which is proposed in the contract. The revenue benchmark is set at $1.7 million. We're anticipating hitting revenues about $2.1 to $2.2 million for 2022. And so the incentive, we have no fixed management fee. There's a number of ways that management contracts are done. Some are a combination of fixed management fee and incentive. We are 100% incentivized for the revenues that our company receives for managing the Stormont Vale Event Center based on how much revenue we bring into the facility. So the revenue benchmark at 1.7 is factored in, and it's a tiered structure. So if we do exceed that revenue benchmark, the percentages that go back in incentive escalate once you hit certain tiers beyond that benchmark.
My
The
rec-
amount we budget, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
The amount we budget is a combination of that incentive fee and the subsidy that we give them for operations. We have to budget one amount that we will pay them, so, but it's made up of those two different pieces.
My initial proposal would be to allocate $1 million flat. And again, just as a, we may come back and revisit it.
That would be additional 14,000.
Let's do, can we do 1,050,000?
Yes.
I'll
That-
second that, if that's
Okay.
your.
Motion made for $1,050,000, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0.
The next item is for Stormont Vale Event Center also. This is for building expenses that are the responsibility of the owner. Shawnee County is the owner of that building, and Stormont Vale Event Center, as we contract with them, that they cover the normal day-to-day maintenance on that building, maintenance and repairs. But there are certain repairs, maintenance items that are the responsibility of the building owner. This is money that is set aside into a fund that is drawn upon for those types of items. We have not budgeted for this in the last couple of years because when we changed the contract from SMG to Spectra, we had some excess funds that we were able to use, and that's what we've been using for this line item. But we have gone through, we have eliminated those funds and gone through those, so now we need to budget something for those owner expenses that come up from time to time.
Would 200,000 be an average of
That
yearly
is
expenditures?
my thought and my hope, that 200,000 would be probably about an average of those.
Correct, yeah. So we would like to utilize these funds for, continued maintenance and upkeep of all the new infrastructural pieces that were renovated throughout the construction project. We, like Betty had mentioned, since 2017, we have not made any capital outlay requests to the commission in our budgeting process because we had those additional reserve funds set aside. As we have operated over the past 4 years, utilizing that account of contingency monies and excess monies set aside, we are starting to narrow that account down. This would help for any capital type projects that would take place throughout the next coming years. And our proposal and our hope is to put this request in front of you on an annual basis so we can look at things like, replacement of the Landon Arena roof, which is closing in on the end of its life expectancy within the next 5 years. Some additional infrastructural pieces that would take place over the next number of years.
Betty, is it better to have this as its own line item or just additionally add 200,000 to contingency to anticipate when events may come up for the event center?
Well, what we have historically done is we have put this money aside in a separate fund, so it is there. If we would include it in with this operating line, it would be hard for us to really know how much to give them as a subsidy for their operations throughout the year. And they would not really be able to budget on how much they would be receiving as a subsidy for that year when they're making their plans and for their operations. So I'll also mention, this is money that stays at the county. It is, it's just a transfer to a separate fund, so that, so that we are not getting, so we have money set aside for these things as they come up. This is not money we pay to the Stormont Event Center. This is money we keep for maintaining our asset.
So, couple questions. So,
Yes, and yes, these are mainly going towards capital assets. Some would be repairs, but any capital assets have to stay on our books because it's our property.
so why would this not be in the separate capital outlay budget?
It certainly could be, and that's a good point.
I mean, it seems
Yeah.
like a reasonable thing to be on there.
But it was still, the money would have to come from somewhere.
I agree. The other thing is, so the fund that was there, how was that funded initially? I mean, you said it's down to zero, basically, I assume?
No,
or-
there's still some money in it, but we still have half a year this year to go. Historically, this is how we did fund it. We funded it through budget, through a budget transfer every year up until the time when we had these excess funds from the SMG account. And we just, instead of continuing to budget it, we used that first. So historically, it has been budgeted out of this, out of our normal budget.
Is it just for the event center, or is it
Yes.
for,
Well, the
whole
event center
complex, or-
for that complex, so it would be for Heritage Hall or Ag Hall also. It wouldn't be for Manor because Manor is separate, but it would be for, could be for the equine area also. Domer Arena could be for that also. Any of the properties that's included in the Stormont Vale Event Center.
But just the Spectrum managed, or,
Yes.
because, okay. I'm trying to think back of our capital outlay discussions last week. You know, we allocated 2 million, but I feel like we're getting pretty close to that already, so.
The unknown was how much of the ARPA money would be able to be
Yeah.
utilized for different projects.
Yeah, I think it'd be a good idea to just take this and move it over to the capital outlay requests, and then keep it kind of the front of the mind. I don't know if it needs to be in the critical, but certainly in the high priorities.
Okay. So is that a budget, is that
I
a
mean,
motion for
But, you know,
zero?
Would
I'm
be-
open to
no,
other
yes.
suggestions, so.
So then are you increasing your capital outlay by 200,000?
I guess we'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
Okay, so at this point, then there would be an allocation at zero for the capital outlay, or I guess the owner building expenses.
Right, and again, I think it's important that we put some money into this. Obviously, we don't want to spend, you know, almost $50 million on a facility and then not take care of it, so I think it's something that needs to happen, but I just don't know that this is, the general fund is the appropriate place for that.
Motion
yes, that would
made-
be my motion.
Motion made by Commissioner Mays for there to be zero allocated to Stormont Vale Event Center building, or owner building expense. Is there a second?
second?
Motion made by Commissioner Mays, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Reflected, it passes 3-0.
The Fair Association is next. They're asking for an increase of $15,500 for rental cost increase.
And that is reflective of the increase of the cost by the Stormont Vale Event Center.
So, I have a few thoughts on this one. Obviously, in the total budget, you know, an extra $13,500 is not, you know, an astronomical amount of money, but I do think that it'd be good if we could, if the fair would perhaps try and generate a little revenue I mean, I would love to see a concert or a carnival or something that went along with it to try and generate some revenue to help pay for the event center costs, if nothing else. But, you know, just operationally, it seems like, I know they want to have a free fair, but I think that even the free fairs throughout Kansas have some paid activities as well.
I know that in years past, Candace, I know that you're not here on behalf of the Fair Association, but as the extension and former 4-H rep, you work closely with the Fair Association. That in years past, they have had some concerts, they've done some entertainment. Last night, they had the Family Fun Night for the participants in the fair, and there was a concert there as well. Candace, I mean, I know, again, you're not a representative of the Fair Association, and I don't, but your thoughts on whether or not there's possibilities of trying to arrange for a concert or whether revenue, is that something you think the fair, in working with 4-H, and thoughts?
Thoughts. So there is a public concert, and that has traditionally been a free concert, but that is something if they wanted to charge, you know, they could try. Probably my first thought would be sponsorships for the fair. I know there used to be some car dealerships that would sponsor just to have advertising at the fair. I think, so that's what they have done before. I would say I don't think much of that happened in 2019. And then 2020, there was nothing really to sponsor, but I think the rental costs were a lot lower because we didn't have public, so we didn't rent the big buildings. And they charge vendors to have vendor booths, but I'm not sure how much revenue generation is there. But I think before charging for their concert, probably the sponsorships that former fair boards, because the fair board membership changes, former fair boards have had success getting people just to be a sponsor of the fair.
I think, I mean, that would be a good start, but I know that, you know, Kellen's here. I'm sure that he would be happy to work with the fair committee. And Candace, again, I know you're not part of the fair committee, but you've been involved with it for a long time. And so I just think it'd be good if we could get more of the broader community to participate in the fair.
Oh, and I absolutely agree with that, because the more people that come from the public, the 4-H is part of it. The fair is almost a recruitment and a retention tool for 4-H, because if you have an awesome county fair, you're going to do your record book, which is the funnest part of 4-H, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh my gosh, kids love record books. But you have to have that awesome, fun experience, and we all know the more people that are at something, the more fun it is. So for 4-H, it benefits us if there's more people at the fair.
So I would, and I would just encourage them to maybe get with Kellen and see if we can, I know there were issues with the carnival not being able to be scheduled due to a non-compete clause with the other carnival. If we could find a way to make that contract work so that we could get a carnival, I know that those are pretty successful typically, and so, I mean, I think there are ways that we could generate some additional revenue and get more participation from the community. And obviously, the rental rates are going up. I'm sorry, you don't need to stand up there anymore.
Okay.
I'm just talking now. But
Commissioner Mace, if we set aside moving it from 68,000 to 75,000, that would help them get some of those contracts to help get events, or 'cause you're going to need some money to, if you're going to book a concert, you're going to need to be able to have some money to be able to use to do that. I'm looking at Kellen. I mean, people aren't just going to show up for, they're going to want some money up front.
Yeah, and just real quickly here, so we did try and get with the Fair Board this past week during the fair. A little bit challenging to do that while the event is being produced, so we are planning some future conversations with them. Some of our thoughts and the ideas that we have is not only working towards the concert side, but how can we share some of that, that responsibility and that cost on, getting that event to contract there at the facility? And that might be in form of, we go out and chase the concert just like we typically do for our other events that we produce there, and then coordinate some sort of revenue share between, the Fair Board and the building on the production and the actual revenue model for that concert. And then also working with the carnival folks to potentially add an additional date as opposed to challenging the non-compete clause in the contract, adding an additional date to their schedule here at our facility.
I think all of those are good things. So, yeah, I would support
Moving it to 75,000.
75, and then, I think also one other component is to evaluate their space needs as well. Do they need the entire facility for that amount of time, or can they maybe consolidate it just a little bit for a portion of the time to cut their costs? So,
Motion made by Commissioner Cook for 75,000 for the Fair Association, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Reflected, it passes 3-0. Bringing us to Parks and Rec, our third highest budgeted item in the...
Parks and Rec is asking for an increase of $796,000. $405 of that would be an increase in their seasonal help. Now, this is in addition to the changes for the capers. I've already included the increase for capers in the flat budget, but this would be in addition to that. $48,000 for retirement, and then their workers' comp, they get charged additional workers' comp if they have more claims than the average department, and that has gone up $70,000.
There were some changes too in part-time.
That's what I've included in the flat budget. The capers, the additional capers, that,
Okay.
I've included that in the flat budget. I believe it was like 322,000 or 300 and something. I've included that in the flat budget. So this 405,000 is an addition to that.
So Betty, I had heard that there was a possibility of being able to spend ARPA funds on deferred maintenance.
Yes, and especially for Parks and Recreation.
And we've gotten, sort of, the Parks and Rec Advisory Board has indicated a strong interest in funding additional deferred maintenance. Is there any way that maybe we might be able to allocate a certain amount of money for that and then perhaps decrease the budget and still accomplish the wage increases for the intermittent employees?
Well, the deferred maintenance is one of the things that, and especially in those, what they call QCT zones, it's qualified census tracts. And I think a lot of our parks that need deferred maintenance are in those areas. So I do believe that's something that the SPARK committee can look at.
What about lost revenue too? Was there?
There's lost revenue. It's very broad on what you can spend from lost revenue. So that really encompasses a lot of things that you could spend most anything that is going towards government services for lost revenue from ARPA funds.
Should we come back to Parks and Rec?
I think
Yes.
so.
Okay. Noxious weed,
Noxious weed, they are asking for their flat budget.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve the flat budget request by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. All opposed. And the flat budget amount is $300,426.
Next is the Appraiser'S office. They are asking for an increase of $36,817, and that would all be retirement fund. Other than that, they are asking for a flat budget.
I'll make a motion to approve the requested amount.
Second.
The requested amount, including the retirement fund?
Yes, including the retirement. So that would,
Okay.
because they, again, the requested amount is including their contributions to their retirement, correct?
Yes, but generally, a lot of, yes, that's not included in the flat budget. But a lot of times that request is not made, or not granted in the budget process.
I would,
They have more of their employees that are getting to retirement, though, if I,
That would be a $36,817.
so their current retirement payout is $151,000 if all those folks retired.
And down at
Their
the,
fund balance is $40,500 right now, so the highest payout for any of their employees is $33,000. They have enough to cover that.
well, that was Steve.
Oh, that's Steve, yeah, so $26,000.
I mean, if they have,
28.
if they have two of their employees leave, they would be over.
But if they're two highest left, it'd be a total of just under, I mean, it'd be about 35, or not 35, but 65,000 or 55,000, so, 15,000 would cover that. So, I mean, what if instead of 40, we did 20?
Okay? Then I have not completed my motion, so then,
I would move that we do 20 for
Okay.
them instead of 40.
that would be $2,012,399. Motion made by Commissioner Mays.
I'll second that. What was that number again?
2012399.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Reflected, it passes 3-0.
next is Planning Department. They are requesting $49,256 over the flat budget. $41,000 of that is for a new employee, and then the rest was for a retirement fund.
Question for Randy. We had talked about your extensive research that you guys are doing for free right now on behalf of people who request it, and the potential of charging some kind of a fee for some of those, what would you call deep dives. How much revenue would that generate, do you think, have you put together some kind of a modeling to show how many hours are being spent, or?
If I were to, my thought is a reasonable fee to charge somebody for doing something like that, depending on how much they wanted to get from our department, would be somewhere between $150, $200. We may get 10 of those a year, maybe a little bit more. Now that we're seeing more and more development coming with the economy coming back, figure 10 to 15 a year.
Okay, so not a substantial.
It's not a huge amount, but I think it's a fair amount. I think where we're getting the money, the revenue that you're looking for is on the permitting side, having more people. The other person will allow us to issue more permits at a faster pace. That's where the revenue is coming in our department, is on the permitting side and the floodplain development permits. That's where we're getting a substantial increase, and the additional person would help us get our records in check, or we could have more time to devote to the customer. That's what we would foresee as the revenue maker.
Also, just a comment, I don't know that you've increased fees.
No. We collect a lot of fees that are, they're quite honestly ridiculous. Like, we charge a $5 or $10 fee for something that it costs us more money to collect the fee and do all the paperwork with accounting than it does that the fee generates. Our fees are very low. As part of the rezoning process that we're going through, updating that zoning ordinance, we're taking a lot of fees out of the, we're going to ask to take a lot of fees out of the ordinance to put them in a separate freestanding planning fee section of your overall accounting fees. That would be a good opportunity for us to look at doing some things with our fees. I think subdivision we're good on, but the zoning part of our fees are way low. We charge like $300 for rezoning, and it costs us probably 3 times that much the process, with going through the newspaper publication and all the things we have to do to process it. So there is a lot of opportunity on the zoning in particular, which is why I mentioned that right now.
So, Randy, I don't know that today's the proper venue for discussion of fees, but what would be helpful is if sometime in the future we could get maybe a comparison of what, like, City of Topeka or some of our comparable counties are charging for fees, and then address that at a later date.
I could do that before you finish the budgeting process in the next 2 weeks. It's very easy. It's very easy information to gather.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. Other thoughts on planning? Commissioner Rippon?
Oh, I'm not sure.
This time I would move to allocate 300,000 even, again, just as an initial allocation.
I would keep in mind, though, if you're allocating additional money that's less than 1 employee, I don't, you know what I mean? If he's asking for another employee and you're allocating less than that, I'm just saying you need to keep in mind what they're asking it for. Yes.
I mean, it would cover the retirement fund contribution and then general expenses, I guess, but.
That would be an additional $16,476.
Is there a second to the motion? Or
And the motion is
300,000 even?
I mean, if we're only gonna fund the retirement fund, I mean, we could probably just drop that down and even another 6,000. And if we wanted to do add the position, there's no way in their current budget of under $3,000, I mean, they can't add another position with partial funding. It's gotta be fully funded. So, I mean, I don't know, I think it's one or the other. It's either gotta be the flat budget, I think, or the full request.
Well, you could.
Or pretty close to it, at least.
You could fund the new employee, but not the retirement fund. That would be about 41,000. That, to me, would make the.
So.
With what, the 300?
No. I think, I kind of agree with Commissioner Mays. You either fund a position or you don't fund it at all.
Well, so I would add to the discussion that they actually have a negative balance in their retirement fund of almost $6,000. So perhaps Commissioner
Well,
Cook's.
that's why they're asking for it.
That's not their balance.
That's not their balance.
What says current balance, negative 5,900.
Yes, that's where you're just subtracting it out from what you need. So what it shows at the very bottom.
Okay.
See what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's what they have in there now.
Currently, the planning office is operating with a very light staff, and having the additional person could be a benefit to the planning department, but is that one that we're wanting to do this year?
I don't know. It still begs the question, you know, are they even going to be able to hire anybody right now? I mean, I feel like we've got a lot of vacancies. I mean, people are tough to come by right now. I don't know that, I mean, if we add some funding, if they'd be even able to hire anybody for it, so.
Just to clarify, the person we're looking to hire will be a reception level person. So it wouldn't be somebody who's a professional staff, who's going to be doing planning activities. It'd be somebody, we would transfer a person who's already on our staff doing more important things than reception and taking her off that position and hiring a very low-level, entry-level position, and somebody who has maybe 5 years' experience or less. So you're looking at somebody in the Teamster category of office, office assistant. So those people are a lot easier to come by than somebody who's a professional staff with 5 years planning experience or something along those lines. So we're very confident we can fill that position.
If I hadn't said it, my motion for 300,000 died for lack of a second many minutes ago.
I figured that. I just kind of buried it. So. I got your back.
I'll second it for now. I mean, we can always come back and visit this.
All right, it has been revived.
It's been revived.
It's back. We've resuscitated your motion.
My motion for 300,000 for the planning department, again, is an initial amount. Second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. All opposed. Reflect that it passes 3-0.
Okay, next department is Public Works. They are asking for $53,765 over a flat budget, and that $47,000 of that would be a transfer to the retirement fund.
Comments, questions?
What does their retirement fund look like now?
Betty, or Kurt, or Commissioner Mays, since you have it?
So it says on here, the carryover for previous years, is that what I'm,
That's what the balance is going into this year.
so the
Into this
balance
budget.
going in is 272,000? It's pretty substantial. So, I mean, I don't know that they're gonna need a whole lot in terms of that, but unless I'm missing something here.
No, that's probably correct. You know, those larger departments, the balance does build up to a significant
And
amount.
it doesn't look like there's a lot of people eligible to retire right now in Public Works, based on this, so. I would say that we just do the flat budget for Public Works. That'd be my motion.
Motion for a flat budget, $8,931,455. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Reflect that it passes 3-0.
Next is Register of Deeds. They are asking for an increase of $53,864 for a new employee.
Again, this Register of Deeds office has been operating on a very small staff for many years, and they are really just at capacity with the amount of deeds that are being recorded. And this is not a optional request, this is a need just to keep their office moving forward.
Well, and also just to add to that, I believe she reduced her staff a couple of years ago, and this is just adding back a little bit of it, so.
Yes, they had reduced the staff and going back to 2014. So,
Yeah. I move that we approve the request.
second. So the approved motion made by Commissioner Mays for $315,936, second by Commissioner Cook. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Reflect that it passes 3-0.
Okay, going down into public health. The next one is the Andaman Animal Shelter. They are requesting a $10,000 increase.
I'll move that we set it at the $130,000, knowing that we may come back to it, but also noting it's been a number of years since we've had any change to that.
Yeah, I know it's based off of the number of animals that are collected in the county, that it could potentially go up from there a little bit next year, so, or even throughout
Well, this
the
is
year.
a flat amount that we set. Many years ago, we did it by per animal, and it was hard for them to budget, hard for us to budget, and so we changed it to a flat amount per year.
And they could either accept that flat amount or reject it.
Right.
Okay. All right, I'm fine with that.
Motion to budget $130,000 by Commissioner Cook,
Second.
second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Reflect that it passes 3-0.
The next is Community Resources. They are not asking for an increase.
Motion to approve the request of $35,000.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Reflect that it passes 3-0.
Conservation District, they are asking for an increase of $3,000.
I move to approve the request.
Motion made by Commissioner Mays for $47,000.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Reflected it passes 3-0.
The Health Department is not asking for an increase.
Motion to approve the requested amount of $2,151,781.
I'll second.
Motion made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Mays.
Health Access is not asking for an increase.
I'll move to approve.
Second. Motion made by Commissioner Mays, second by Commissioner Cook. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Reflect that it passes 3-0.
Extension Office is not asking for an increase.
I'll move that we approve
Or
the
Extension
request.
Council.
I'll move that we approve the requested budget.
Second. Motion made by Commissioner Rippon of $601,748. Second by Commissioner Cook. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Reflect that it passes 3-0.
For mental health, Vallejo and Partners are not asking for an increase.
I'll move to approve that.
Motion to approve the request of $2 million.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Reflected it passes 3-0.
TARC is not asking for an increase.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve $996,344 for TARC by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Reflected it passes 3-0.
Service programs for the elderly, they are asking for an increase of $21,877.
I'll move, well, let me see, what was the,
and they just, allocate the funds out. So when the Council for Aging takes all the requests, and then they make a request to us based on their interviews and the applications they receive from the different agencies. I didn't have it noted as it was one specific thing, just an additional allocation they're requesting.
During the budget presentation, the Committee for the Aging, Mary Thomas indicated that they were wanting to do some additional funding, and that was the reason for the increase. It was a 3% increase. I would move for approval of the requested $691,500. Again, it's a 3% increase, and it's
An increase of $21,877.
I'll second.
motion made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Reflected it passes 3-0.
For the social service grants, they are not asking for an increase, stay at $190,000.
Is there a motion?
I'll move to approve that.
Second.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Mays at $190,000, second by Commissioner Cook. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Reflected it passes 3-0.
Okay, that finishes up the public health area, so we go down to administrative services, and we go past the ones we've already done. So the next one is Audit Finance, and I was asking for a $3,620 increase, and that is for financial reporting software.
I'll make the motion to approve that request.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Rippon, of $572,095. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Reflected it passes 3-0.
Next is the Board of County Commissioners, requesting an increase of $21,423. For $8,000 of that was for agenda software, and $13,000 was for communication, the new communication division, for supplies.
I would move that we take that down to $500,000. So we do have to pay for the agenda software, but I think that communication supplies can wait.
I'll make the second, and again, noting that we may come back to this. So $500,000 is a motion made by Commissioner Mays, second by Commissioner Cook. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Reflected it passes 3-0.
Next is the county clerk, and she is asking for an increase of $18 over the flat budget.
That's outrageous.
I know. You want me to tell you what it's all about?
Please.
Good.
I owed somebody $9, and I didn't pay him, and then they came back and said I owed him another $9, so I said $18.
I
Sorry.
thought it was the Cindy Beck Party Fund.
No. We gave, no, you will never find that. No, don't worry about that.
Who knew?
Just calculations.
I'll move to approve the requested amount.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0.
Next is elections. They are asking for $156,412 over the requested, over the flat budget. And just to remind you on this one, the flat budget is calculated on the 2022 wages, but it's also looking at the 2020 goods and services, because they're on that election cycle. And we feel like that little more closely represents their cycle. In this one, we had, they had 66,000 in overtime after they had already added a new employee. And then 41,000 additional for seasonal help, and then 40,000 for the new equipment maintenance. You'll remember the printers, was, the maintenance on that was about 40,000.
Betty, with the impact of COVID and knowing that there's going to be changes because of COVID to elections and how we conduct our elections, and even being able to get the volunteers that we've had in the past for elections, how much of the ARPA funds would we be able to use towards that?
To be honest, this one is one we haven't really spoken of or looked at
Okay.
in the Spark Committee yet, so I don't know. It's not something that is specifically addressed in the ARPA, so I think if we were to address it, I think it would have to be in the lost revenue. I don't believe it's something that's specifically addressed outside of that.
Okay.
Eddie, in the event that our election office has to notify all property owners due to that Senate bill, that's quite a shot.
Well, that's really the clerk's office that has to do that.
They have to pay for that.
That's not really on
It's
the
not
election
them.
side.
Okay, well, good.
General expense will be
And
paid for that.
on that, the,
$18.
General expense, my $18, yeah.
Yeah.
My general expense will be for that.
the state will pay for that for the first 2 years, but they will only pay for printing and postage. They won't pay for all the labor or the employee
Hard work.
costs to it, but they will pay for that for the first 2 years.
Okay.
And Cindy gets to deal with that.
Questions?
I think we might want to come back to this one.
Okay.
Agreed.
We'll hold this one.
Okay, we go down to facilities management. They're requesting, excuse me, the request is 27,763 over a flat budget, and that is mostly for janitorial, to bring that in-house, but then also some additional for supplies.
I'll move to approve the requested amount.
Second.
Motion made for approval of $817,486 by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Reflect that it passes 3-0.
Next is human resources. They are asking for $178 over a flat budget.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
Motion to approve $473,627 for the human resources, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Reflect that it passes 3-0.
Next is in information technology. They are asking for $90,503 over a flat budget, and $78,000 of that would be the retirement fund. So just $12,000 additional besides the retirement fund.
So, where are we at?
Betty, again, if the amount of the increase that's not reflected or part of the retirement would be how much?
That 12,000. 12,500.
I would move that we do 3,530,000 even.
That would be an increase of $51,504.
Second? All in favor, say aye. Commissioner Mays made the motion for 3,500,000 even.
530.
I'm sorry, 3,530,000 even. Motion second by Commissioner Cook. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Reflect that it passes 3-0.
Okay, and the last one for our discussion is the Treasurer's Office. They're asking for an increase of $36,351. 14,600 of that was for an intermittent employee, but they also have added an employee. But then 22,000 of it was for the retirement fund.
I think that would put their retirement fund pretty much fully funded.
It would.
Well,
would-
and all of them, the request would
Yeah.
fully fund the retirement fund, or their departments.
Questions for the treasurer, who has sat patiently while everybody else went?
I move that we approve the request.
Motion to approve the request of the treasurer by Commissioner Mays, second by Commissioner Cook. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Reflect that it passes 3-0.
So all the departments have been discussed.
The departments that we have not designated at this point are Community Corrections, District Court, Sheriff, Parks and Recreation, Elections, COP, Debt Service, and implementation of the comp study,
And by special liability fund.
and Special Liability Fund.
Well, or did
No,
we
we
say
did.
0? No, we did discuss it, and you said 0 at this time. Is that right?
I had put,
I thought we said we were coming
100.
back to it, or when,
okay,
Andy, do you have that
I had down
special
liability
fund?
100, motion made by Rippon, second by Cook, but can we
yeah,
double check that?
I have that same thing, actually.
Yep, 100,000 is
Oh.
the special liability, motion made by Commissioner Rippon, second by Commissioner Cook.
Okay.
No, it would be a 0 in the adjustments.
Okay.
So we
Yes.
approved it as requested.
Yes.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
yes, that makes sense. Okay. Okay, so where you landed from today, for the adjustments you made today, you would be increasing the mill levy, or estimated by 1.955. And that's without, addressing the ones the other ones. Or the comp study.
Betty, I'm just having when you're saying increase, I mean, did you then you have under the proposed budget the flat amount for those departments that we missed or skipped?
Yes, that's including the flat budget.
Okay,
It's just not
Right.
including any increase from the flat budget.
correct, okay.
Yes.
Betty, do you feel comfortable if we were to put an amount for the implementation of the compensation study for the sake of, again, I know that this is a issue that we know is coming, we may not have the exact amount, 4 million may be too much, but if we were to say 3 million,
I
just so
think
that we
we
can
could-
get an idea of what the impact would be.
As long as you don't make me stick to it,
No.
I think I could look at 2.5 million for right now.
Okay, let's, again, that is a substantial impact for our county.
It is. And that brings you up to a 3.319 estimated mill increase.
So, Betty, I have a couple of concerns with that. And some of these other items, particularly Parks and Rec, where 400,000 of that was for wage increases for intermittent employees. Is that taken into account twice with?
Well, it might
that?
be, and that's one thing we're gonna have to look at, because they are looking at the intermittent increase. They are looking at the intermittent salaries. So that may very well be looking at that, doubling that up. So that'll be something for us to really ask and look into.
That's something we need to keep in mind, because that's a pretty significant swing one way or the other.
Right. Because on the intermittent, they are looking at those wages, and pretty much the only increases that we're showing on those were all Parks and Rec. So we'll have to look at that, and I think that may be exactly what they are budgeting here. But that'll be a decision, you know, comparing what the department is actually what increases they're showing to what we're showing for the comp study.
I'll make a motion to set aside $2,500,000 for the comp study at this time.
I mean, I don't know that I'm ready to, I like being able to see it as a hypothetical, but I'm not ready to put anything on paper yet, if that's all right with you guys.
All right with me.
It would,
So, I mean, I don't think we're gonna finish today, so.
Yeah.
no, we were not.
And this tells you where it would be if you did that.
Right, that motion then dies. So we have 7 areas that we have not allocated or made any changes. Do we wish to go back to any of those 7 areas, or do we want to stop for today?
I think, what do we have, 4 more scheduled meetings?
You have
so-
3 more
yeah, so
scheduled.
I think let's just,
And as fun as this is, you know, we don't have to use all 3.
yeah, well, I think we should maybe call it quits for the day
All right.
and answer some of these questions that we've got.
Then we will motion to table this discussion to be resumed then on Thursday, July the 29th. Is there a second to motion to table?
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Like that it passes 3-0. With the discussion to resume on the 29th. Madam Clerk, our next item.
Item 5, Administrative Communications.
Is there any department head or member of the public that wishes to address the commission on any item? See Bill Sutton. Jumping up.
Good morning, Commissioner. Bill Sutton, Shawnee County Solid Waste. Just like to announce that Brewster Place has came on board to host a glass recycling bin down there at their compound or their facility. That address would be 1001 Southwest 29th Street. The container actually sits off of Central Park Avenue. Forgot the street right there. Again, it's a purple bin, and just like to thank Brewster Place for coming on board and hosting that. And that brings us to a total of 10 glass bins across the county now. So, thank you.
Great. Good. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Just a reminder, we are voting at the office this week, so just encourage everybody to remember the mayor's race, District 3 City Council, and one position in 345 Seaman School Board are part of the primary race this year. So if you live in the city limits or you live within a portion of Seaman School District, remember that primary election is going on at the election office as we speak. 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. each day throughout this week, and then till noon on Monday. So just a reminder for everybody about that. And then Election Day, August the 3rd, Tuesday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good morning, Commissioners. Dusty Nichols, Emergency Management. It's going to be hot, so please check on your neighbors, check on your loved ones, check on your pets, stay in the shade, drink a lot of water, and be careful. And just be careful.
Thank you. Anything additional? Commissioner Mays?
Nothing from me.
Commissioner Rippon?
Went to the fair. Good time. Watched them judge some hogs.
Yeah?
Yeah, anyway, and I did a little volunteer work this weekend at Ward Mead. We had a busload of people in from Kentucky and got to do a little touring there. So it was a good day. Hot, but nice.
Very good. Well, I don't have anything additional, so hope you all have a rest of the day. Madam Clerk, our last item.
Item 6, executive session.
There's not a need for an executive session. We're adjourned.